Hey folks, this is Nick coming to you again, and this time I'm going to be taking you through Whisperlude, or my remix of A Little Princess, the magnificent Alfonso Cuarón film from the 90s. I'm going to be taking you through kind of a breakdown of this track, just to show you how I've built it, to show you the extensive amount of samples I have actually used, because I think it can be quite interesting for people, and it's really just fun for me to go through and see how I've actually done everything, and to listen to the individual layers and all that kind of good stuff. So we start off with this section. You can see that this fade out is actually the loop here. You can hear it's actually longer than what I used, but we faded that out and then we slowly start to fade in something else. Way down the bottom here, harp intro, which is somewhere around here. Here we go. Again, I'm not impressed with the way that you're forced to organize, or should I say disorganize, your tracks in FL Studio, but nevertheless. So we have this kind of chord slowly starting to fade in, as we can see here. It's just a loop. So we get through this. We have to actually unsolo all the stuff. And we can see how this track takes off up here. Now, when I finished putting those harp chords together, I was very, very happy with myself. I thought, this sounds bloody great. So let's listen to these chords in isolation individually. We can hear I've actually got multiple versions of each chord, and the reason for this is so that I can master them each individually in accordance with the sections that each of them goes into. I'm finding the need to master layers in sections differently from other sections to be quite important. Now if we go into number 7 here, you can see that I've got the same bass line that I use in most of my tracks, but this time I've actually added on an octave higher. And what this does is it allows us to hear the bass a little better on the smaller speakers that some people might listen to the track with. And in addition to this, I have actually mastered this bass very extensively on a pair of studio monitors to try and really get that bass coming out as best as possible without conflicting with any of the other areas of the spectrum. So we can see that we've got this dip here. And if we go to the harp, we can see that harp is on channel 19, where I've also done mastering. And I've taken a lot of bass and microphone hum out of the harp section. And I've just given it a little bit of extra presence on the end there. This is probably the track that I've mastered the most extensively out of all my tracks to date. Now, down the bottom here somewhere is where we start with this tremendous vocals section. Alright, so there we go. Now, I have actually reused a few samples there. I sort of got to about here and I started realizing, I'm going to have to reuse some of these samples. I just don't have enough to keep going.
Then it's about it. Just me for this job. Getting it and you'd principles.
Gosh, again, it's just nostalgia going through these.
Out there, you have to think about their ship instant. Will be I must back that.
I'm still very proud of this. I'm really happy that I made this track because I think it's a great achievement for me to have made. I'm really happy with how this came out. So that's the big vocal section there. You can see that I have actually mastered this extensively as well, to the point where I've actually started drawing harmonics out. I've taken a lot of the mid bass out because the harp and the bass is occupying this spectrum area, if you'll remember. And so having vocals interrupt there is something that I've found to be very dysfunctional. So what I do here is I start bringing the harp back, but the difference being I'm now using a harp that is mastered differently from the opening harp. You can see here that I've actually brought back some of the mid bass, I've increased the treble a lot, and I've dipped the mids in the harp very much to allow the vocals that space. And I've actually applied a stereo enhancer to put these harp chords on the outermost parts of the stereo field, which helps, again, accentuate the vocals which are occupying the center of the stereo field. So what are we doing here? So here we've got more chords, and I've actually started mixing a whole bunch of different percussion sounds that I've recorded from the film, which we can see here. Again, a lot of repeated samples, and to give the illusion of extra samples, I've applied a delay. I've also sampled these so that they come up purely on the high end, and as I said, I've put a delay on here so that if I hit just one of these, we can hear that it echoes off, so that when we play all these in succession, it gives the illusion of more samples by overlapping the previous bar on, I think. And the chords in isolation are in pattern 8. The bass is very simple. What have we got here? I've even got as far as to sample the hi-hats, the kick drum, and the snare drum all on different channels. What is this? This is... obviously I haven't gone to the extent of using Gliss EQ, I've actually just used the parametric EQ, but we can hear the difference if I take this off. The snare drum actually suddenly has a lot of bass in it, and it's too high up on the high end. It's too harsh up there, so I've taken that down, and I've drawn the accentuation out in the middle there, so the whole thing just ends up sounding much cleaner. And finally the harp chords on their own. And then I drop down a key into the next section where we have lots of vocals going on as well. So let's listen to these vocals on their own. These sort of squiggly curves here indicate automation, where I have actually been recording changes in the volume. I've actually recorded myself changing the volume throughout this section, because we've got these two looping bits on the left and on the right. And having that just constantly, I think, would get a little irritating. So having a variable volume, I think, really helps kind of break that up. This thunder, I think, was recorded from the film as well. And then we come back. Now, what I've done here is I've added a faster vocal section. Now here I've really gone nuts. And again, I've chucked a good delay on there, and I've actually EQ'd that too, so that I make sure that there's no dysfunction between the main vocals and those quick vocals. It's just kind of a good climax. And we got tinkling there as well, which was recorded from the film. And that seems to be more or less everything. Again, I think with I Want Silence up there,
I want silence up there.
I just broke the quote into the separate bits so that it was easier to put them out on the beat. And so there we go. The first person I showed this track and video to was actually Sky, aka Homestar Runatron on YouTube, and I owe him a debt of gratitude because he helped me pick out the name for this track, Whisperlude. Originally I was going to call it something like Sarah Tone because Sarah is the name of the main character, and I thought putting tone on the end, Sarah Tone, might have sounded quite pretty. But it just doesn't roll off the tongue as well, and I think Whisperlude really does put the cherry on the cake. So there you go, folks. There's a breakdown of Whisperlude, my remix of Little Princess. I hope you've enjoyed. Look out for more breakdowns in the future.